Basically, today we will see what is web, and then building blocks of web, and how the browser works. This is the today's agenda. We will try to cover up these parts. First, what is web? So before internet, there there are things working. There are data sharing in between the organizations, in between the research organizations, but that is pretty much with the delay. Okay, so how the data is sharing in the past, like you can write a letter and then you can post it, and then that will reach to a different person, whoever you want to send it. But if you see that part, that has a delay in between that. Once you need to write that letter and then you need to send it, and that will go to that person. It will take weeks or days time. But after that, there are some mechanisms comes into the picture, like telephones. Then you have fax machines where you can share the data. But still, there is a one lack in data sharing, that is video content. Okay, so if you want to present something with a bigger audience, still you cannot present it. You need to be present there. If suppose you are in Mumbai and you can give a presentation, whoever is available there. If you want to give the presentation to some other persons, like someone in Delhi, they cannot join that conversation. They need to travel to Delhi, Mumbai, and then they can attend your presentations. So those are the basic problems where someone take an initiative to develop a internet. How they think of solving that problem? That is the first question. Previously, what is there? Like if you have a two PCs uh, residing together in a one room or in a different room, you can connect it through cable, and you can transfer the data. There are other things like a floppy disk or a hard drive where you can put the data and send it to the some other person. So someone, basically this guy, who think of connecting all the computers in the world to each other and then transfer the data. It's a giant network which he think of initially, like setting a one PC in America, and then you have a one PC in India. Connecting those two PCs with a cable, it's not possible at that time. But he gave that idea, if we are able to connect that PCs, so that we can transfer the data within minutes. So Sir Tim Berners came with that idea, and today we are in a world where the transfer of data is in seconds. So thanks to this guy bring our lives to a easy pace, and we are also earning the bread and butter out of that. So this is how the web development initiated. Okay. So now comes to the it's developed in 1989, and after that in 1991 first web pages developed, and it's become live. From that time till now, we have a web 1.0 at the initial level, then comes to a web 2.0, and then now it's a web 3.0 is a new future. We will talk about this later in a other means later on. Now come to the importance of the web. Now means today's world, everyone is using net. Okay. Everyone is shopping on a net. Everyone is doing lots of work in a net. Even we are talking, that is also on a web. So these all things are possible just because we have a worldwide network. Okay. So the importance are pretty much in, like, we are totally dependent on net today in the today's world, and it's really fast and giving a lots of things to us. So these something in some things are written here. You can read it out. Like anywhere you can access the data, anywhere you can push the data to the servers. Okay. then shopping and all those things. Government organization also working on the internet. You have lots of site, IRCTC, government information is available on the site. Like recently, we saw that COVID portals are developed in just a few months. When the COVID is started, you are able to see the data where the COVID cases are increasing. You are seeing the apps. So it's really important to get the information in a today's world. Now, similarly, we have lots of upcoming features with the Web 3.0 that we will discuss later. Okay. Now, we can come to the evaluation of the web. Okay. So, initially, Web 1.0, that is basically a static pages where you have a read functionality. Suppose you have research data somewhere in a research organization. They That data you can access if they allow some with some of the data you can access. Some of the magazines you can access. Previously what happened, like you will purchase the paper and you will read it. Someone need to send that paper to your home, you can read it, right? So after that, some time back, the newspapers are published online, the books are published online, which is physical books. We are wasting the paper and all those things. Right now you can read it on the net itself. There's no wastage of trees, eco-friendly system and all those things come to the picture with the web development. So in the Web 1.0, we have a static pages. Basically, you can go ahead and read the data. Now, after that, it comes as a requirement. Like if you are interacting with the customers, right now I am interacting with you. I need some of your inputs as well, right? Like I asked about the previous session homework regarding questions. You responded back with the chat boxes. So that kind of functionality is not present in a 1.0. It's only read only. After that, we have a Web 2.0 where you can write the data as well. Okay. So in writing the data, you have a client where you can query some data that will be visible on your browser. And then you can also submit some data, which will go to the server and server can analyze and play with that data. In Facebook, Twitter, multiple social media sites which we are using currently, you are reading and writing both. Right? You are reading the seeing someone's profile picture. You are also pasting your pictures, whatever you want to share. Right? So those kind of things are possible after. Okay. Can you please share, moderator? Can you share the PPT content with the guys? Okay. Let's come to the Web 3. Okay. So in the Web 3, what problem with the Web 2 is we have a centralized data stores. Right? Like Microsoft is owning lots of data. Google is owning lots of data in this world. Okay? But that is centralized to a particular organization. The Now the requirement comes as we can we decentralize that data, okay, so that it will be accessible to the other companies as well. Other aspects of the Web 3 is it's more secure in terms of Web 2. We will talk those things in a later session. I'm just giving you the overview of that. Okay. So in terms of security, Web 3 is more secure. Okay. AI and ML, those things are more applicable to the data because it's not centralized, because it's decentralized. So anyone can play with that data. Anyone can apply the AL and ML algorithm on top of it. Okay. And also it is means give advantages in IoT devices. Okay. Now comes to the uh, basically power of Web 3. So now Web 3, today's era, you can see the virtual currencies are there. Uh, Facebook is building up a virtual world kind of thing. So in future, you don't even need to go to anywhere. You can shop it from your home itself, and you will feel like you are present there. Also, in terms of security, if you see the transactions, bank transactions, right now, they need to put lots of restrictions on the data. Okay. Because someone can hack their server, they can modify the transactions, and the money will be lost, because that is the centralized store. That is the truth, so source of truth for them. If you are able to hack that, then the things will go for a toss. Okay. Now in Web3, we have a decentralized way. Like, data is present at a multiple places. The hacker cannot hack at a time all the servers. They can only hack some of the computers. They cannot hack all the word means 1,000 or 10,000 of computers, and where they can modify that. Also, it is totally linked with a blockchain kind of concept, which is pretty much secure. We will discuss those things in a deeper level at the end of this course. I think module 5 is there, where we will discuss about the Web3. Before that, just get an overview that things are there and it will come. What are the benefits of a Web3? Because you are right now learning about those things. So we need to know what is the benefit and how the things are developed. So that's about the power of Web3 part. Now come to the building blocks of web. So this is the very important thing. Like on these concept only we will work in future lectures. And yeah, so the web is divided into the 4 parts. Like, one is the content. So content is always there. Like I think in the ancient age where the net is not there and the web is not there, the content is there always. Like someone is writing something, someone is writing the books, someone is writing the newspapers. The content is there. Okay. But here the content is in a digital format. It's not a physical format. Okay. So we have some content in a digital format. We want to give it to customer, or we want to take some inputs from our clients. Okay. Then what is client and what is server? Okay. So right now I'm using this browser. This is kind of client. Okay. The server who is responding to my queries, who is providing the basic services. Okay. In the real world, if you see, the client is whoever is coming for a particular service. Like you are going to Big Basket app, right? You are the client and you want to buy some services from them. So they are the service provider. Similar way, the servers are service provider. The clients are who are requesting for the service. So in that terminologies, the browser is our client, and the backend, whoever is responding to our queries, like I hit this URL, I want this PPT on my browser. So the server, basically in a backend, we have a particular dedicated software which is responding to our queries uh, by doing some calculations, by fetching the data from the data stores, by fetching, with doing lots of takes on that data and then responding back to the client. Okay. So this is the client and the server concept. Uh, do we have any questions on client and server concept? Is it clear to everyone? Okay. Makes sense. Fine. So let's move to the next part, protocol. What is the protocol? So if in general there are some rules whenever you are doing the work, even suppose you are going on a road, there are rules for the transportation. There are rules for the traffic. Okay. Similarly, in the web, we have a rules. In this way, we need to transfer the data from the server to a client. That particular rules are called as a protocol in the web world. Okay. It's just a set of rules which are defined to communication for communication between the client and the server. Okay. So generic rules like hypertext transfer protocol, if you are from CS background, there are other rules like SSH, secure shell protocols. There are multiple protocols, TCP/IP, and all those protocols. Right. Similar way, we have some hypertext protocol, which we'll discuss later. Okay. Then the identification. Okay. So the identification part, like whenever you are going to any movie theater, right? So you need to provide your identity. In India, we have a identity card like called Aadhaar. That is your identity. Similar way in a web world, whenever you are logging any site like Google, Facebook, Instagram, they are identifying you with some ID. That is called your identification. Similarly, on that identification, we have some authorization as well. Like if this guy is coming, then what permission he had. Like if you go to the bank as a customer, in that case, you have a certain permissions. But if an employee goes into the bank, they have a certain other permissions as well. They can access the cash, but you cannot access the cash. You have a certain protocol to follow to get the cash. Similar way, in a web also, we are working. Okay. So just link it with the real world. It will be easy to understand the concepts. Now come to the content part. So what are the type of content basically? So basically, images which we are sharing mostly on the Pinterest, mostly on Instagram, Facebook, and all those things. Right? You are clicking the pictures in a digital format, and then you are sharing it with the other guys. That is our one of the requirements. Then we have a we can think of a audio content, right? So audio is you can only listen the content. Some sounds you can listen, like I am delivering some audio to you. You are listening to that. Now, if you combine these two, you will come up with the videos. Videos is some pictures in front of you. It is flowing, it's playing the sequence of pictures, and some audio is playing inside in the background. So that is called as a video. Then we have a text, which is basically you can write some document, you can share it with them. Government is sharing lots of documents with you guys and publicly. We are also sharing some of the documents, like this PPT will be shared to you after this session. Right? So this is something like a text. So these type of we have text. We have contents. Okay. Now come to the client and server part. As I explained you, there is one client side. Like if you take an example of bank, we are the customer, so we are a client for them. Okay, and then there is some service provider, whoever the job holders or a bank employees, they are the service provider. You can imagine them as a server side. Okay. There is a boundary between them, like you have counters in a bank, and you mostly one side of the counter you are there, and other side of the counter the employees are there. Similarly, we have this browser as a client. Okay. The backend, whatever services are running, uh, that is our called as a servers. Whoever is responding our queries. There are some examples of that is given here. Like if you want to just process some data, there are companies who are providing the data storage solutions, which is called MongoDB is the one of that. MySQL provided by Microsoft, Redis. These are the basic company-based solution. You can go to that vendor and ask that you purchase that service. Okay. Similarly, on the client side, we have a different type of clients like Chrome browser, Mozilla browser, and there are some Android apps also you can say as a client. You can develop your own client as well, right? So there are multiple ways to develop the client. In between that, we have an internet, which is for providing the content in back and forth. Because we are currently using Web 2.0, so this is back and forth. Previously, it's just read data kind of thing, query the data and read it. Right now, client can also send the data to the server. Server can store that data. So, okay. Now we have a protocols. So protocols, as I told you, like we have a rules defined to communicate for communication between the client and the servers. We will discuss that, like how the things are working between the server and the client and the server. So the generally we are using a hypertext transfer protocol. There are two versions of that. Previously we are using HTTP, which is not secure. Right now we are using HTTPS, which is secure. We will later discuss on the what is the security, and how in general term how we are providing that security. Okay. Uh, okay, there are some encryption is terminology is used here. Let's discuss that and then come to the this PPT. Okay. Now this guy is saying like we want to use this example.com or a facebook.com, right? Now whenever you are hitting the facebook.com, at that time you need to provide the username. That is okay, like you can share the username with multiple person, like I can share it with my wife or my colleagues or whoever I want. But the password is something we want it to be secured, right? So how to secure this password? Because from your keyboard you are writing it in a abcd or 123 format, but somewhere when it is traveling from your pc to the backend, it should be secured, right? So in real world, how we are providing the security? Let's take an example of bank again, right? You have some gold, you have some cash. You can go and buy the locker in a bank and put your secure data there and lock it out. Till the time you have the only key, then your data is secure. Right? You can share your keys with your reliable persons. Right? You can share it with your parents. You can share it with your family members. You can create a duplicate keys. Similar way we are doing here. We have a one key with uh, client and one key with server. We are calling it as a public key and a private key, differentiating those things. Okay? Whenever we are writing a password on your browser, we encrypt our data through key, that public and private keys. You can right now imagine that key as a box and where you have a lock. Once you are writing the password, you can put your password in that box and lock it with your key. Okay? And then send that data to a server. So in between that, if a hacker want to hack the data, he will see only the box. He don't have a key to unlock that. Okay? Once it is reached to a server, server has a key to unlock that data. So in this way, we can secure our data during the transaction between the client and the server. That is what in general called as a encryption. Encryption itself is a very big topic that has a multiple algorithms to encrypt the data. Okay? You don't need to go inside that because that is come out of the box for the web developers. You just need to know the concept. What is that encryption is? So that's what I explained to you. And in the later lecture, if we will talk these terminologies in a deeper way. Yeah, SHA 256 is a one way of encryption. It is start with a MD5 and then SHA1, SHA2, SHA 256. Uh, as Rahul Yadav wrote it, that's a great. Okay, so just little bit more on that. So once you have a longer key, in 256 is a very long key. So if you have that much big key, so it's hard to decrypt that. So that's why more big is the key, that more hard to decrypt the data. Yeah. So let's move on. Don't much in means don't invest much time on this. We have a lot. to cover. Okay, so here you can see, okay, there is a sender. Sender is something like a client for. No, don't change the terminologies. It's a sender and receiver is kind of uh, basically clients. You can put a client at both the sides. You can put a client at one side and the server at another side. You want whatever you want, you can do here. But whenever sender want to send some data, suppose a plain text, they will encrypt it with a lock. You can imagine a box over here which is locked with a key. Okay? There is a lock and you have a key, public key. Then this message is sent to a server. Server is a private key, which will uh, unlock that data, and he will get a plain text here because that box is removed. Now you have a plain text, and receiver can receive that data. Okay. The similar way, the Facebook and all the encryption techniques are working. The basic concept will be simple, but this encryption algorithm and the decryption algorithm might differ. And depends on your security concerns. Right? So some data is very like banking data, that we need to put it in a very secure manner, right? Because if someone have that data, it might be a loss, means loss of your whole money. Similar way, some data is publicly available. Like if you see Wikipedia, some news, something like that. That is less secure data. You can put a less encrypted values there. You don't need too much publicly available data. Then someone will hack that. There's no much business loss for us. But if it is something which is pretty much secure, you need to be means careful about that. You should put an encryption around it. Now come to the SSL encryption, HTTPS protocol. Here also same thing is there. There's send public key method. So generating a session key and then it is sent to the server. Server is using that key to decrypt the data. The same kind of concept, but the protocols are different. Like here we are locking it here, and then the receiver have that key. Here we are sending the certificate as a key, and the server is using that certificate to decrypt the things. Okay. Now come to the identification part. Okay. In the real world, how these terminologies are working. First, we will understand that and understand the requirement of those things, and then we will go with these concepts, how in the web world, how these things are working. Okay. Now, in the real world, you have one identification number, as I told, Aadhaar card, PAN card. That is your identification within India. In a global world, you have a passport number as your identification number, right? Which is respected by the whole world. And they made a protocol that if this is the terminologies you are using, like this is the number, I can track the information of that particular person, whoever country he is living in. Right? So that is somewhere your uh, identification number. Whenever you are going somewhere, like in airport, if you are going, they will ask you to for the authentication, like who are you basically. So you will give them a passport. In India, domestic airports, you can give your Aadhaar cards basically. So through that they can identify you that you are an Indian citizen, you are living here, whatever your address is, you are a authorized kind of authenticated person for India. Okay. Now the authorization part. Now once you enter in a airport, you have a particular, as per your identity, you have a particular rules or a particular things for accessing. Okay. You cannot go on the security counter side. You can go only on a public side where the same identification is given by their employee, and they have access to their stores, the other areas of the airport. Similarly, in the banks, you have access in a different way. Okay. So, on the basis of your identification, they are providing you the authorization. In the real world, that is what works. The same concept is working in a web world as well. Okay? So in the web world, you can take an example of Facebook or Instagram, where you are providing your user number. Whenever first time you are creating the account, they will ask you to basically put your information. What is your username? What is your mail ID? What is your phone number? Your password. Next time whenever you are coming, they are identifying you with your name, mail ID, phone number. There are different mechanism to identify a person. There are multiple keys, like we have Aadhaar card, PAN card, voter ID card, driving license, lots of keys in a real world. Similar way, they are also identifying you in a multiple manner. Your username, your email ID, your phone number, whatever the unique IDs are there, they are using that. Okay. Now whenever you are authenticate you, they will they have a certain rules defined in a backend, that you have access to these things only because you are log in as a client or as a administrator, or right now just like I log in as a teacher, right? So I have some certain accesses, but in from your side you log in as a student, so you have a certain access from your side. You cannot uh, do lots of things, like you cannot end the session, you cannot start the sessions. Those are the access given to me only. So this is something related to what are you allowed to do when you are logged in, when you are identified as a user to that particular service or in a real world. What you are allowed to do, what data you can access, what data you can watch. Right now means, if you take an example of Netflix, Disney, okay, there are multiple kind of users there. If you purchase a lower level of subscription, you cannot watch other content of that. Okay? So whenever you are purchasing those things, they are moving you to a different category of client. Okay? They are allowing you multiple things. So those things are in a web world that you can currently see. Okay. Now come to the how the browser work. Now this is what the browser is like. I'm using the Chrome browser. So this is also working in a certain fashion. This is also till now. Do we have any questions? You can put in a chat or a Q&A session. You can answer those things. Is there any questions? Okay, course content for the session is not uploaded. Yes. Yeah, that is Sir. Who is that? Parth. Sir, will low code, no code tools will replace the developers in the future? Yeah, man. We traveled a lot in that front. You can see previously we have assembly language. Right now we are just writing some business logics. So we are moving in that front. But your brain cannot be replaced because you are the only person who is generating the idea. And might be the coding skills can be replaced, but the concept, the things which you are developing, the researching, that cannot be replaced for some time. I'm not sure about the future. Okay. Okay, now comes to the other questions. Okay, let's do one thing. Like, if you have any questions, you can put it in a chat. Voice is cracking. Is it now clear? Does the content you post is in the HTML? No, in encryption is not default. You need to use encryption mechanism. to encrypt it. Some clients and the server, if you choose the option, they will provide that, but it's not come out of the box. There is some code running behind it to encrypt that, and if you want, you can turn off that, because encryption will come with some latency. Latency is basically when you are locking the box, right? Putting the things in a box and locking it, it will take some time. If you don't want to waste your time in that locking and locking, you can put your content in a nor without encryption file, right? But general guidance is to encrypt the things. Okay. Yes. Okay. uh, Azruddin, have a question that, sir, please explain about how user is authorized after login ID, using login ID and password. Okay, this is out of this agenda, but I will explain you a little bit about that, but I will not waste much time on it. Okay, so whenever you are putting your username in the registration page, in the backend they will generate a one customer ID related to that, like your Aadhaar card ID, which government is generating for you. That is the one number. Similar way, companies are also generating one number for you, and your data is preserved in comparison to that particular link to that particular number. Now whenever you are putting your mail ID or a phone number, they will search your identity through that particular number. If you are aware of a means basically database, you can think of a indexing where you have a phone number and a mapping to a customer ID. Then those are linked, and whenever you are searching your mail ID or phone number, that will directly jump to a particular identifier which you have in their database, right? And from that they can pull your password and all the details whatever you have, and they will match it. Suppose you gave the wrong password, they will pull that identity, they will pull out the password, they will match it. If it is not matched, you are not identified as a uh, you cannot be authenticate to log into that site. Authorization is one more step there. Your customer ID or your identification in that particular company, like in Facebook you have particular identification number. That identification number have some access policies for you, so they can fetch that policy and provide you the access for the content. Okay, is that clear now, Azruddin? Great. uh, I think we have a 240. Okay, let's discuss little bit about the browser. Okay, then we will go for a break, 5 minute break, and then come back, and we will see what are the browser components and all those things. I will explain you that, and then we have a Q&A question. So please hold your questions for the last at the end of the lecture. Now come to the how the browser works. Okay. So in the web world or software industry, every thing whatever we are building have some architecture. Okay. What is the architecture? In the real world, you are seeing when you are designing your home, at that time some architect will come and design your home, right? The similar way, as a software engineer or a developer, we are designing our softwares. That is, we are calling as a architecture. You can think of a different part of it, like you have a bedroom, you have a kitchen room, you have a dining room. Similar way, we have some roles and responsibility in the architecture design that you will learn in a I think system design module. So just now you can link it to a particular home architecture or building architecture or different kind of architecture term wherever you are using. So similar way we have a architecture in software industry as well, and that develops on the basis of requirements. So what are our requirements? According to that, we will develop that architecture. So we have a web browser architecture as well. Someone developed this web browser like Google. Chrome is developed by Google. They architect it in a layered or some fashion, and they have a certain rules and responsibility for each and every component of that architecture. Right? So we will discuss about that. Decode the components of a browser and how synchronize with each other. How the rendering work. Okay. So when you are doing the web designing, at that time the rendering will play a role. Whatever we are seeing on our PC right now, that is a job of renderer. How you are rendering the things, how you are rendering the pixels, how you are showing the content to a user. That all magic happens through a renderer. Okay. Okay. Now, if someone have any questions, they can ask for 5 minutes. Yeah, just now 5 minutes over. Rahul is too much punctual. Okay. Yeah, Rahul. If you have any questions, you can ask, or any other. Someone has any questions, you can ask there. Let's see what is in a Q&A session. Reality, decentralized term, work in a Web3 work. Okay. So you can see decentralization. What does this mean? Okay. Right now, you are saving your data in multiple machines. I'm not saying it's on a single machine. Machine is basically your CPU, which is reside in your home, your laptop, which is a basically a hardware. Right? Similar way, we have a multiple hardwares in a company. We cannot because today data is pretty much big. We can it cannot rely on a single server. Okay? But the access of that server is with one organization only. Like if you are saving the data to a AWS, right? Or Amazon is saving some data related to your online purchases, related to something you are doing on the Amazon AWS. Right? So those data is processed only with Amazon. Decentralization, basically it is available on a multiple places. The data is not owned by a particular organization. That is available on multiple machines. Like you can see an example of a cryptocurrency right now. So that is basically calculated on a multiple pieces, and then we are taking maximum means output of all the pieces, and means saying that okay, this is the truth because maximum person voted out of that. Okay. So in that way, it's decentralized. Lots of companies are building decentralized metaverse. That is right. That is going to be a near future. Meta is working on that, and that is the means mostly uh, your leading brand in that field. So will you be teaching us? No, that means we are in a means JavaScript in a module, but it's not like I am teaching you or whoever is teaching. Whoever is an expert of JavaScript, that person will teach it, and that is decided by the AlmaBetter. Okay. Any other questions we have? Same questions. How the decentralized data is more secure? I'm going from bottom to top because I don't have a time to explain all the question. At the end, we will take a question answer session. How the decentralized is basically you're more secure. That is one of the questions. We love that question. So, okay. Uh, okay. Think of a multiple. You have a data on a one PC. Okay. Changing that data is easy for a hacker because he can hack that server and change the data. Suppose you have a multiple copy of that data throughout thousands of pieces. It's hard for a hacker to hack all the 1,000 PC at the same time and change that data. Also, the blockchain concept came with a history of change in data that we will explain later. Might be it's going uh, pretty much is from those who don't know much about the blockchain. That is, we will explain it in a module 5. But right now, I need to answer this security question, so that's why I'm answering. So in the blockchain, we have a multiple documents and the change of history of documents. So the hacker need to change all the whole chain of documents, the all history of that particular document. Also, it is he need to change it on the multiple machines, like thousands of servers. He need to change that data. It it is right now almost impossible for a person or a hacker to do that. Um, might be in future they will find out some ways to hack that data, but right now it looks like an impossible thing for a hacker to do those things. In that way, it is pretty much secure. Okay, it's 8:55, so let's start with the session, and then we will go ahead with the Q&A now. At around, I think, 9:30, we will go for the Q&A round. Okay. Now come to the architecture of a browser. One thing I think I missed out. What is DNS? Right? Somewhere it is there. Like this kind of thing you are writing in a browser. Right? So internet world, we have a IP addresses, not these kind of addresses allocated to a particular person. So, but as a user or as a human being, we were habitual of reading these kind of things, like example, English words. Basically, we are comfortable in reading. That's where the DNS comes into the picture. You cannot learn the Google IP address, and every time you cannot remember that and type it. It's very hard to remember. Like it's miss writing a phone number for thousands of sites. It is likely impossible. Right now, we are saving it, calling it with the name. Similar way, in a web word, we are calling it as a DNS. How the DNS works? Whenever I'm writing something in my browser, suppose Facebook login. Okay, I go to this one. Here you can see a facebook.com, right? Or you can write a google.com. Right? So in typing, these things are easy, but in the backend that are more. Sorry, I'm not sharing the screen. Share it. Is my screen visible to everyone? Yes. Okay. Sorry. So whenever I'm writing a google.com, right? So in this particular google.com is translated to a particular IP address. How that mapping will work? Okay. Whenever whenever we are going to prepare any site or something like that, we'll buy this DNS name from some site like you can say DNS checker. Similarly, you have a DNS purchaser as well. DNS lookup. You can look up different sites, like suppose we have google.com. This after a dot, this will identify your root word. Okay, so you can see here google.com is already occupied by someone. Right? So similar way, they purchase those DNSs, and that is available on some cost. Right? DNS server is Google. These kind of information you will get it. But how these things are working, that I will explain you in a brief manner later on in our modules. That will be explained in a more deeper way. So now we know the requirement of using this DNS, dnschecker.org or google.com or such kind of things, because it's useful to remember as a human being. But machine knows the IP address. So how this mapping will done, like google.com to a particular IP address, how this mapping done in a backend. Whenever you are purchasing any domain name, there are authorities or a server or a database where these mapping will be defined. So first time, whenever you are calling google.com, it will go to your browser cache. Browser cache is where we are trying to save some data. You can say it's as a data store, and data store is something like your notebook. Okay, in a notebook you are writing, suppose google.com in front of some IP. In front of that you are writing a IP. Okay, whenever someone say what is google.com IP, you will open that notebook and see this is what the IP for google.com. Similar way, in a web world, we are using the database as your notebook, and we are writing google.com and its mapping of a IP. So this mapping is saved at a multiple level. Okay. This is saved in your browser cache. Cache is also kind of notebook, which is not you can say hardly persistent. Like notebook is always with you. Something like you can say a slate. Previously, we are using blackboards or a whiteboards, where you can rub that out. That is similar to a cache in the real world. Right? You are writing something, whenever you want, you can delete that, and you can write newer data inside that. So that is something cache working. Notebook is somewhere you write it till the time you are not erasing through your ink eraser or not. It will not be erased. You can do the small correction, but mostly we are whatever we are writing in a notebook, that will be persistent storage, and that will rely with you for a longer time. So that is called as a database. So firstly, that mapping is stored in your browser cache. Then the second cache is your operating system. Like I'm using a Windows, so in the Windows also saves some of the data. Like this particular domain name is mapped to. I think it's shared. Uh, is my screen visible to everyone? Okay, I think it is shared. Yeah, only Google page I am presenting. I can change the tab now. Okay. So, okay, this mapping is stored at a multiple level. One is the browser level, and then you have a OS level. Then you have a multiple local area networks. Then you have wide area networks. And then you have ISPs. Then you have a particular dedicated DNS service. Right? So these root word like .com, .in will give you the as a identifier which server you need to contact with. Okay. .com server is some different. IN server is something related to India. Then you have UK servers. You have a different kind of servers. So that basically that root word is telling you where to finally go for the search. Okay. That's why we are preserving it. And whenever there are drawbacks of using some IN based domain names. Then you have a .com based domain name. Then you have a local UK based domain name. As per your requirement, you can use your domain name. Like if I'm building a site for India only, I can use the .in. .com is something worldwide, so we can use the .com name whenever we are building a site for a whole world. So this is how the DNS server works. Basically, whenever you are hitting this URL, it will go to your browser cache, check what is the IP for that. If it is means it is able to find that IP, browser is basically able to find that IP. That will give it to you, and you will able to contact to that particular server, because servers are exposing only IPs. Right? Similar way, if you are not able to get it in our browser cache, you will go to the OS cache, take it from there. If it is not present there, then you can go to the local area network. From there, you will try to fetch it. That mapping is not present there, then it will go to the wide area network, then ISPs, and then finally .com server, .in server, whatever server is there. Then you will fetch that mapping and call them. Whenever you are doing it first time, very first time when you are launching the particular website, at that time the data is available somewhere on a DNS server. And if the DNS server push that data to other regions, then it will be available there, but it's not present in your browser cache in your OS cache. So first time it will fetch the data from that place. That's where you will see the sites are taking some time. In the next time, it will be pretty much faster. When it is in your browser or in your OS, it will be very fast. So generally, browsers, whenever it is seeing new data, it will put it in their cache, and whenever you are frequently accessing that data, they will remain in your cache. If it is not used for a longer time, they will remove it from your browser cache. Okay. That all concept you will learn in a further modules. Okay. This is how the DNS work. Now come to the your architecture of the web browser and rendering part. Okay. So in the architecture of a web browser, we have multiple layers. Each and every layer has their own responsibility. Like in a real world, every employee has their own responsibility. Similar way, we have a different layers which have their different responsibilities. You have your user interface. Right now, whatever we are seeing as a browser, it is our user interface, which where the user will interact. The user interface word will come from user interaction. Okay? So whenever user will interact, it will be called as a user interface, and that is a browser layer where I'm writing this google.com. Okay? And then hitting the enter. So whenever it is hit enter, the call will go to the backend and try to fetch some data. Okay? This is the example which we put it in a user interface. Okay, any browser, either you are using Chrome, Edge, Mozilla, any kind of client you are using on a mobile, uh, apps you are using, those all are user interface, because user is directly interacting with those things. The visual element of the browser with which user interact. Okay, address bar, home buttons, next and previous buttons, bookmark bar. Okay. Wherever you are able to interact with, those are all the user interfaces we are calling. Then it comes to a rendering engine. Whatever we are seeing, whenever hitting, suppose open a new tab, something like a speed test. Okay, so this something came out of the box and render on my machine. Rendering is basically whatever you are visualizing the things, right? And its look and feel are good. Uh, the pixels and all those are things displayed. So that is somewhere a rendering part. As name suggested, it renders the basically everything for you in a web page. In a browser, whenever you are hitting anything, the data is coming from the backend server, and the responsibility is rendering engine responsibility is to display it to the user. There is lots of things happening in between that, right? The server have their data in a particular format, then that will come to your browser or your machine, and that's where you need to transform that data to render it on the UI. So they have their own set of rules for accessing the data. They have their own format to write the data. uh, like you can see, I can give you one example. Like we have a different languages, right? So in a different languages, the presentation style is different. If we have a Hindi, we are writing from left to right. If we have a Urdu, we are writing from right to left. Similar way, Japanese are writing in a vertical, Chinese are also writing in a vertical and a horizontal fashion. So every language has their own type of rule to write it. Similar way, we have a different type of presentation here as well, like text, audio, video, image, JSON, XML. These all are the presentation of a data in a particular structured format. Okay. Okay. Are we facing issue with the content size, PPT size? Should I increase the size? Okay. Let me increase it. Is it now good? Uh, Dhanraj? Let it know. Okay. Let's do one thing. Close this out. Is it now good? Take the pictures. Dhananjay, is it good for you? It's okay now, sir. Fine. Okay. Now we are on this part, rendering engine part. Okay. Then we have a browsing engine. So what is the browsing engine is doing? Okay. That is the bridge between the user interface and the rendering engine. Suppose I'm writing some text from the user interface. Okay. Then it need to be transformed and pass it to the rendering engine so that the rendering engine can understand those things and render the things. Okay. This is what written here. You can read it out later. Networking UI backend. Okay. The backend is the part where we are saving most of the data and doing the lots of processing at that end, because every user machine is not capable of doing the high computations. Right? So we want all the computations at the backend, so that will be in our control only. Not readable. Little bit zoom. Is it now readable? There is, yeah, network UI backend. Mukesh, is it not? Please resolve this. And okay, Mukesh Kumar is also okay. Should we continue now? Continuing with that, uh, you can open the PPT if still someone is facing the problem. I think moderator already shared the PPT link. You can open it on your side. Okay. Now come to the backend thing. What we are doing generally for our okay. So backend we are trying to do much processing because we have a much control on that. Like if we are hosting any site or any server on AWS or in our premises servers, we have a much control on that. We can put a larger machine there and we can compute a large things there. So most of the part we are trying to put it in a backend, and from backend, whenever someone is querying, we are just responding back with them data. There are two type of data. One is the static content, which you are seeing on the most of the sites. Like if you see in a Google, this whole page is mostly a static. But sometimes you are seeing the ads here, right? Or some ads. Those are something dynamic. Okay. So what we are doing, we are returning the full data from the backend, that this is how the your page will look like. Okay, that data will be transformed, read by the renderer, and render will render that data. Whenever the UI interface you are using, you are putting some input that will come to a browser engine. Browser engine will convert the data in terms of rendering engine, uh, where the rendering engine can you can see it as a translator thing. Like if I'm uh, giving a lecture in, suppose, some Chinese language, okay, you need a translator in between that, so that you can understand, because you know English and I know Chinese only. Similar way, render knows some language, and the interface, the user interface is giving you the uh, some language. Okay, so the translator is required in between that, and that is somewhere a browser engine. Backend is something which is responding to your queries and giving you the data from the backend. There are lots of computations handled on the backend side. Like someone asked about that login page, how that is working. Right? You are providing your inputs. You, whenever you are hitting the URL, that DNS will be resolved. Backend will give you the login page data that will be rendered by the renderer. Okay. Now you have a user interaction in the login name and the password part. Right? Two boxes are there where you can type the data. Whenever you are typing the data, that is in a layman language. Right? So that will go to a renderer, and then it will go to the backend. Backend will check the data. That this is the identifier and this is the password. So now backend is doing the computation that you are authorized person or not, authenticated person or not, and then according to that, it will fetch the authorization rules for you, and then it is responding back to the browser. The same like backend will respond, then render will render, and then your page will be shown on your browser. Okay. This whole flow is working in that way. Like you can see it in this diagram. Okay. The user interface, then browsing engine, then rendering engine, then your JavaScript, networking, or a UI pattern. Okay. Now come to the data processing part. When I told you about the cache, right? Similarly, we want some data to be persisted in a your PC, so that we should not call backend again and again, because whenever you are calling the backend, that comes with a some latency. So that's where we want persist some data. Previously, it's in form of cookies, which we are right now removing. Now it is coming with the tokens, and also some browser cache, where we can see store some data. Yeah. So this is all written here. Like in the terms of cookies, you can use the CSS, JavaScript, and some things I can show you as like okay. In the network tab, if you go and refresh this, um, I think we are not able to see the console. Console, whatever logs you are writing, that will come. I'm trying to show you some of the scripts part. You can see that these many queries are going in a backend. Right? This is how the browser, whenever I am hitting this, you can see that these many queries are going in a backend, and these all are JS and all those file names. These are the initiators, then your size, then you have which time which call is going in backend. It is not visible. It is expected. Let's do it in this way. I cannot zoom this part, man. This is the tool provided part. So please manage with it. You can go. I can tell you the way how to check the network tab. Okay, and you can do it in your browser as well, because this part is not zoomable for me. Okay, so whenever I'm hitting this one, you can see like the first these queries will go, and then the page will render here properly. So this is how the flow is working currently. Uh, we will go ahead in a deeper way, like how the things will work. We have a separate module for that, just for your curiosity. I'm showing those things. So be patient. In next few sessions, we will see new modules. We will see that part. Now, one part is the rendering works. How the rendering work. Okay. Now, we saw these all interfaces, how the things are working. Now we are focusing on this rendering engine part, because whole JavaScript and all those things are working in this part. HTML, CSS, these all are related to your rendering part. Whenever JavaScript is fetching the data, it will push into the HTML. Don't worry if you don't worry if you are not aware with the HTML, CSS, these terminologies will be handled in a separate module. So just think of a hypertext means HTML and all those things, right? Just think if as a flow. Don't go into the deeper right now, and don't be panicked like I don't know the HTML, I don't know what is DOM and all those things. This is for just telling you the flow. Later on, whenever we are going into the deeper module like HTML, CSS related modules, at that place, you will be tell into the deeper way, like what is HTML and what is the CSS, how to write a HTML code, how to write a CSS code. Okay, so don't be patient in those cases. Right now, I'm telling just a flow. So first, okay. So first, the HTML will create a one DOM. DOM is something like a think of a one paint book, right? Initially, we are doing the paintings in our schools, right? So it's kind of similar way. Right? You have some idea in your mind. You will take up a notebook or a art book, right? And then you started rendering or designing. Means whenever you are means drawing something through your pencil or a sketch pen, That is kind of rendering engine is doing. But before that, we need to do some analysis in our mind. Like if we want to design a suppose elephant, right? You should know what is the elephant, and that is somewhere you will get a picture. Right? If I will say, suppose today, something which you are not aware of how it will look like. Okay, at that time you will search out a Google, or you will go to some place, you will see that how that is looks like. That is what given by the backend. Okay, now you are writing it on a notebook. That notebook is called as a DOM. So in that DOM we are writing some of the things. Okay, then from that DOM information, rendering engine will create a render tree. The construction of the render tree will be done. Okay. Then there are some information related to layout. In a in a drawing book, generally we are sketching a line on all the corners, and then we are doing means creating particular art inside that, drawing inside that. Right? And we should have in a geometry or such kind of things, we should have a markups as well. Right? So markups is something like from top how much distance of a first line, then from bottom how much distance of a first line, what is the color of that elephant, what is the texture, uh, what size it should be, from top how much is the distance, from bottom how much is the distance, right and left how much is the distance. The same thing is called as a layout in rendering word. Suppose this, if we see this block, layout of a rendering tree, this block has some distance from here, right? Some distance from here, and some distance from top, and some distance on from bottom. Also, it has some certain colors, right? So these all things will come under the layout, and then the painting of that will happen. This is how the renderer work. And these similar things we are also working when we are drawing something. If you want to drawing a structure of a building, you need to do the measurements, you need to do the color, analyze the colors, you need to sketch some design out of that, you need to gather the information related to that all the steps followed here. First we are gathering the information in terms of DOM, that will be converted into the rendering tree construction. Then you have a layout, how the layout will look like, that information will be incorporated, and then the painting will be done. Like whatever we are seeing on this is looks like a painting. Right? Whenever we will refresh that, again that same painting will be drawn on our browser. So this is how your rendering engine work. There are some references you can go through with that and uh, get a better deep knowledge of those things. Later on, we will cover up those topics. Don't worry about that. Now, last one is, let's start with the most obvious way of using the internet. So this is something as a diagram. Whatever we discussed, that is in this diagram. Sure. Let me reduce a little bit. Now it is coming to this. Yep. The user will go to the browser and then expected to see this particular website. In between that, we have a multiple steps to do it. First, you are typing the URL. That request will go to the DNS server. That will be resolved to an IP, translated to a domain to IP. Right? Then we have a server. We will, through that IP, we are calling the server. Server will respond back with you some data. Okay. Then here you have your browser, this particular part. Yeah, this user interface, browser, and all those things. So this is how the website will be shown on your browser. Okay. This is all about these topics. let's start with the Q&A sessions. Yeah, now you guys can ask the questions, provide the feedbacks as well if you have any about the session. Even no one have any questions? Okay. So basically, DOM, I told you in a later section, you will get a deeper knowledge about a DOM. Right now, you can see it as a one document. Document is something you are writing, right? You are writing some Word document or something like that. Okay. Don't worry if you don't know about the HTML or a hypertext. That is okay. We will, yeah, you can refer to a W3 school, but later on we will cover up in other modules. Don't worry about that. What is passing of HTML in simple term? Passing of HTML. Okay. Uh, let's take one example. Uh, Suppose you are reading any document, like any book, right? So you know the format of that book. Like you need to open it from back or you need to open it from front. Right? So similar way, the parsing will work. Like if you see in a top of the document, you have a header, right? Whenever you are looking into the document, you can say, okay, this is the header, this is the title of a book, this is appendix of a book. So similar way, the HTML has their own way of defining the things, and whenever we are passing, we have a particular way of passing that and pulling out the content from that. Like in general way, whenever you are reading the book, at that time you are passing it in a certain way. Like if you are reading a Urdu book, you need to read it from a certain pattern, like uh, right to left. Right. In Hindi book, you have a left to right. In Chinese book, you have a vertical or a horizontal way. In English, we have a demarcation with a space. In Hindi, also we have a demarcation with the space. But in Chinese, we don't have a demarcation. It's a single sentence written there. If you see any Chinese language, it's a characters are written without any delimiters. So they have their own rules defined to read it. Similar way, HTML defines their rules to read that content. Okay. I think AlmaBetter team will answer this question. Is there any feedback link shared for attendance? I'm not sure about that. Okay. DNS, someone asked, hi sir, kindly. Prashant, okay, about the DNS. DNS are basically a domain name servers. So first understand like why it comes to the picture. Because if I told you, suppose some IP, 168 dot something dot something and dot something, it's difficult for you to remember that. And I will say, okay, this is the Google IP. Go and write it every time that number. It's hard to remember those things. Okay? That's why we come up with a layman language things where you can remember it easily. Google.com, everyone can remember it. And in the real world, that is almabetter.com, everyone is remembering those things, right? So these are the English word which we are basically using for remembering easily. Like it's good for the human beings to remember those things. But there is a mapping between those things should happen in this world, right? otherwise you are not able to link it, like what is doodle.com and what is their IP. So that mapping is called as a DNS, domain name server map. That mapping is happening whenever you are purchasing particular domain name, and whenever you are purchasing, it will be registered on the DNS server that this particular person purchased this DNS, and whenever you are linking it to a particular server, that particular server will be linked to that particular you can say that particular domain. Okay. Whenever the request comes into the whenever you are hitting that particular DNS in the browser, at that time that in DNS need to be resolved. DNS resolving means you need to convert it to the IP, and then you need to request that server. So the conversion of that particular DNS to a IP address, that happen at a multiple level. Either it will be on your cache, browser cache, or it will be in OS cache, or it will be in a LAN, WAN, whatever servers are there in the root. They have some addresses stored there, and their mapping is stored there. At the last, if you didn't got any response from these intermediate links, that particular DNS server will respond you to that link. Is that clear, Prashant? Parsing is like traversing. Can you please explain how keys work? Oh, cookies, I can explain you in a very generic term that will be covered in a detail later. So cookies is something like some small data saved in your local PC, and you can easily access that. But there is some authentication and authorization related to that that will be explained in the further lectures, because that will be again a lengthy topic. And whenever you are doing it at that time, they will explain you what is the cookie, what data you need to save it in a cookie, what is token. There are multiple terminologies around that. TypeScripts need to be covered. Yes. Oh. Any other questions we have? Okay. Please ask the question related to the content which I during the lecture. The feedback form and attendance, you can. Uh, okay, yeah. Security. What makes HTTPS more secure than HTTP? Okay, let me go through with that as well. Okay, let's first I will answer this question, and then we will go to question is in Q&A. Fine. Okay, lots of questions. If your questions are answered, then you can. Let's see this question. Could you please elaborate more on the DOM tree? I think I already covered that part. Can we mark it as a Nirmal? Can you mark it as a answered? Or if you have further questions, then you can put it in a comment. I'm looking into the Q&A section. Adit Dikshit, could you please explain the rendering part again? Okay. Uh, okay. How the rendering works? Basically, in a DOM, we are creating that, pushing that data, whatever we are getting from the backend server. That will build up a rendering tree construction. Rendering tree is basically uh, something like a tree, if you are aware of with that data structure. And in that we have all the information related to whatever in the document. Okay, that will be put it in a some data structure format where the passing and all those things will be easy. And then you have a layout related information, how the pixels, what are the pixels, what are the colors, and then left, right, and top and bottom borders, what is the text style, and lots of related to information related to layout and of the rendering tree. And then we will paint that. Basically rendering engine will perform a painting step where you will see this whole design coming out of on the web browser. So just a pre-formation of a data and then painting it. So that's why I gave the example of notebook. How cache work, and that is not. This cache is totally different topic. When you will basically what is cache, I can tell you that for quickly accessing any data, we will put it in a cache. Cache is something. Cache is basically you are saving some temporary data for quick access. So whenever you want some data quickly accessed, you don't want to go to the backend server, or you don't want multiple processing, you will put a cache there, and that cache will be giving you the data with a lesser time. So whenever that's what I can say, but the cache is itself a bigger topic. Like it's not that much easy. I can explain you. The cache is used at a multiple level, and it is widely used thing for reducing the latency. Latency is basically a time, response time. Okay, let's see. So can the font size increase the page in depth dark? Okay, yes. Web3 follows the microservices instead of monolithic architecture. And even now, Web2 is following the microservices architecture right now. Monolithic architecture is somewhere in 2000s, and means if I'm looking into the newer services, most of the services are microservices architecture. There is monolithic architecture is still present in companies because it's a long running code. Like right now, in Amazon, I worked on a multiple services, which is kind of monolithic giant, and in that you need to perform a change, and it is very risky. Like it's whenever you are performing a change at a one place, that will be that blast radius. Basically, it might impact the whole service. So that is the biggest drawback of monolithic architectures. We need to test it very thoroughly. The development is pretty slow in the monolithic architectures. So those are the basic drawback. But mostly, whatever the newer development is Web 2.0 or something like that, the backend services are only microservices. Generally, we are following that architecture. More about this. Okay. Please brief more about the server. So servers are basically mm, like you can say like who is performing you the service. You are the client, and you can go and ask someone, okay, give me this data. So that is what Server responsibility is to provide you. Like on google.com, you can go and ask any queries like what is Divanshu, what is AlmaBetter, what is Facebook. The backend server responsibility is to respond with the output of that. So that is providing you the service. Why it is called backend? Because it's working in a back. It's not you are not able to see it from your uh, browser and all. In terms of machines, if we say like a physical one, it's similar like your normal CPU machines. Right? You can run a MySQL server on your laptop itself. The physical machine, any physical machine will become a server. Now, the software which is running on that machine, that makes a server. Like any database on your machine, it is running. That is providing some service. That is providing a storage services to you. That's why we are calling it as a MySQL server or a MongoDB server. Right? So whoever is providing the service, that is called as a server in general terminology. Later on in the module, we have a backend development as well, like system design. At that place, you will get more like what is the server, how to interact with the servers. Those kind of much deeper details will be covered in those sections. I searched the internet web 3. Oh, download this slide to read offline. AlmaBetter team can answer you better here. Please answer the Akshay Pandey's question. What encryption architecture is used to secure the data? What's so in generic way encryption architecture? You can say like public-private key, uh, which is mostly using now the token-based solutions are coming into the picture. There are multiple mechanisms to encrypt the data to save it from the hackers. Decryption is basically uh, if you have that key, you can decrypt it. But sometimes when I'm in quick heal, the hackers are decrypting the normal data as well. So in the reverse engineering, we are also trying to decrypt the data. Sometimes it's just a normal encryption, so we are able to identify the key. Like if you are writing a password 123, that is easily identifiable. So even though you putting a very hard encryption on that, I can hit and trial and do those things. So there are some reverse engineering which are done by the hackers, and they are really investing a lots of time. It's not that much easy to hack any system. So yeah, there is a possibility of reverse engineering if you are not taking care of certain aspect of encryption. So the username is a form of public key, while the password is form of private key. Please state it. No, no, no. The public key and the private key are different. That is not a username or a password thing. Username and password are basically your identification things. The in public key and private key is totally different. Let me show you. It's a very big key if you generate it through OpenSSL. Right now, I don't have a Linux currently. So let me try some. It's generated. Yeah, you can see this much big key is the private key, and this much big small key is little bit is small in comparison to private key. But this is the whole card as a public key, and this is whole card as a private key. He said it is not related to your username and password. The similar way, we can generate a key from OpenSSL. This is the online portal for that. You can use it in your way as well. Okay. Public key is created on clients. Yeah, public key is created on the client side. It's bench then change your username and put wrong information. Which data is used to replace. And if your username is incorrect, like if I'm logging to Amazon.com and I'm putting my wrong identification, it will say user or a password is wrong. Right? There is a certain means previously it is saying that password is wrong or a user is wrong, but right now if you see most of the portal is saying username or a password is wrong. So that's where the hacker should not identify your username even he is trying multiple times. So that's where they are putting such kind of messages. Otherwise, hacker can put some pics in your username and put that. So with the wrong username, the system cannot identify you. The system has a mapping between your username, whatever you are putting in that login name box. It might be a mobile number or it might be a email address. If you are not putting it correctly, it will not map it to the right user, and the credential will not be matched. It might be mapped to the some other user. Suppose I have a mail ID as Devanshu.v, and you have a mail ID Devanshu.v.v1, right? If I am putting it wrongly, like Devanshu.v1, then I will map to your user, but the password will not match. If we have both have a same password, then it's again a risk. What is the centralized and decentralized? I think this is answered. So in that case, hackers are hacking and stealing billions of worth of bitcoins from exchanges. And hackers are doing a lot of work. Like we are building the software securely. We are doing it our best, and the hackers are doing on their side its best. So they come up with the ransomware, such kind of softwares which will encrypt your whole PC data, even in the bootloader and all those things. So they are putting their effort. We cannot say they can not hack the system or not. But okay, this is also answered. I think most of the questions are covered in a chat as well. So I'm skipping some of the questions. If you have, the decentralization and all those questions, mostly you will be getting the answers in a Web3 when we have a Web3 model. So be patient about that because it's not that much easy concept which I can explain you in 5 minutes. I need to explain you about blockchain. I need to explain you how the data will be stored there. What is the document? Uh, how the documents are made. So there are lots of things you need to know before going to the Web3. So be patient with your questions, and please ask it in a relevant modules. This is a generic overview module, so we are telling you the generic overview. The deeper module will be taken in a later session. So Vivekanand asked a question related to decentralized network. Okay. So I'm skipping those questions. Okay, sir, how hosting of the website or web application on some platform like GoDaddy versus hosting it on cloud virtual machine? Uh, Cloud is providing you a different kind of functionality. Cloud is nothing but a machine sitting somewhere else. Like you have your PC in your home. Someone put all those PC in a one data center. They called it as a data center and put it there. Right? So they have a lots of machine, and then you can rent it out. So that is something like a cloud. Now, the web application you are developing, the GoDaddy is providing some of the easy tools to develop that web. Right? They are backend. They are also using the cloud only. Right? They are hosting the servers on a cloud, but they are more related to providing the DNS. Okay, they're on the servers, whatever they are providing. WordPress is automatically installed. You can go drag and drop the things. Your website will be ready. So they are more intended to provide services related to website development, where Amazon, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, they are providing generic machines where you can host backend servers, you can do ML analysis. They are also providing the services as well, right? Software as a service and software as a platform. So they are giving you the machines on it, and top of that, if you want some service to be hosted, they will provide that service as well. Okay. So means it's not a comparison between the GoDaddy and AWS cloud. Both are using in a backend, they are using a cloud. Okay. As I told you, cloud is use of cloud in web. So basically, cloud is machines are available everywhere. So you can host your site on that. You don't need to put a server on your local, right? And it is lots of things are available easily on a cloud. DNS is not a IP address. DNS is mapped to a IP address. Right? DNS is not exactly IP address. That DNS is something like a google.com, and that is mapped to a particular IP address of a server. Prashant Jadhav, that question is from you. Could you please explain the rendering part again? I already explained it. I could not get what is passing means. I think that is already commented. Please explain public and private. That is not clear with us. Rendering tree and that rendering tree and all those things will be covered deeper in a other upcoming modules. How does the cache work on a web browser? How does the browser use RAM? This is little bit related to hardware. RAM is used by all the processes on your machine. Uh, Browser is one of them. So it is not specific to a browser thing. Okay, I think I covered most of the questions. If you have any questions or someone is not satisfied with the answer, please put it in a chat box. I will try to answer that. Okay, I think we don't have any questions. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this session. We will meet in the next session. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.